Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of Team Jesus Outdoors. Hey guys, today I got a really special video for you. Fellas, over the last couple weeks I've been trying to get ready in advance for the upcoming goose hunting season in September. In preparation for that, I've been doing some waterfowl ammo testing. So guys, last weekend my son and I had an opportunity to run out to the range and do some pattern testing with 5 different loads of waterfowl ammo. And guys, there was 2 things I was trying to accomplish through this testing. First of all, I was trying to decide what ammunition my gun likes the best through my Mossberg 930 with my decoy choke. And secondly, I was trying to see for myself the results of different velocities of ammunition. Over the course of the last couple of years, I've really been studying. I've been doing a lot of research into shotgun ammunition and what factors influence how shotgun ammunition's pattern. In doing all this research and all this testing, I kept hearing the name Jim Muller pop up, Muller chokes. So I started looking into who this Jim Muller was and trying to see what I could learn about his choke company, Muller Chokes. What I discovered was that Jim has been in the manufacturing business his whole life. He spent many years as an aerospace manufacturer. But at the same time, Jim was a fierce sporting clays competitor and a lifelong hunter. So Jim took his years of experience in manufacturing and turned that experience into a choke company manufacturing Muller chokes. I've literally listened to Jim's teachings for dozens of hours, and I came to the conclusion that I don't believe anybody understands shotgunning and shotgun ammunition better than Jim Muller. So I reached out to Jim, and Jim agreed to do an interview with us here for Team Jesus Outdoors. So at the end of this video, you're going to see the interview footage that I did with Jim. But guys, ultimately the pattern testing that I did simply reaffirmed all of the teachings that I had learned from Jim about ammunition and velocity and how velocity affects the pattern. So guys, in preparation of the upcoming goose season, we're going to be testing 5 different goose ammunitions today. We're going to be testing some number 2 shot steel, and we're going to be testing, for comparison's sake, some BB steel. What I'm really hoping to accomplish today is I'm trying to learn a little bit today about the speed of ammo. This old Remington Sportsman's high speed is a 1550 feet per second BB load. I expect these loads to shoot the worst because they're only 1 ounce and 1/8, so they're too light at 1515 feet per second. So I really expect these to perform poorly. If the theory of slow speed and heavy payload is correct, then I expect these to perform the worst. That is a pretty cool target right there. Kind of fitting to get ready for a goose hunt with goose targets. These 1 ounce and 1/8 BB loads, I cut one open. They've only got 80 pellets in them, so counting these up is going to be a lot quicker and easier. We're testing everything today at 30 yards. Our next ammo we're going to test is Federal Speed Shock, which is also a 3-inch 12-gauge load, also a BB load, but this is 1.25 ounces in a 3-inch shell at 1450. So slightly less speed, so a little bit less speed than the Remington.
And this time you got a full 30-inch circle.
So next up, staying with keeping in with a 3-inch shell. These are some Sportsman high-speed number 2 shot, steel number 2s, 1 3/8 at 1,300 feet per second. I expect these to pattern quite a bit better because they're substantially slower, and it's a number 2 shot versus a BB shot, which should hold its pattern a little tighter, a little longer. All right, onto the Remington 3-inch number 2s. All right, now we're getting into the shot that I actually expect. This is the stuff we'll probably want to use come September.
Look how dense it is right here. And then how scattered it is on there.
All right, now we're getting away from the 3-inch. We're on to a 2 3/4, also a steel number 2, also at 1,300, and these are the Winchester Dry Lock Super Steel. Now we're on to the part that I'm really excited about, is how does the different steel number 2 loads shoot? Because I'm pretty convinced I want to shoot number 2s in the fall. So I'll tell you guys, I'm loving these chase targets. It is so much less work for me to have to go home and draw the circles on the paper. And they're just kind of cool to have it's just kind of fun to have the goose targets while we're testing our goose ammo. Ooh, that's a pattern I can live with right there, buddy. Good. All right, two more shots with the dry lock. All right, guys, I don't want to draw too many conclusions until we go home and count pellets. But what I think I'm seeing, I believe that what I'm seeing is speed does matter. I think Jimmy Muller is absolutely correct. Heavy payload at slower speed means a tighter pattern, means more pellets on the bird. And if that theory is correct, then these 2 3/4 nitro steels should be our best performing shot yet. These are 12 gauge 2 3/4, 1.25 ounces of number 2 at 1275. In theory, this should be our best patterning load. Remington nitro steels. All right, fellas, here we go. Remington nitro steel at 1275 feet per second, number 2s. Still at 30 yards. But it's a little bit sparser of a pattern. Well, 2 more shots with the Remington nitro steel, but it would appear that this is not going to be the winner. I'm thinking that dry lock may be the prettiest. You thinking the same thing?
Probably.
So man, what we've got here for comparison, here on the left, we have the Federal speed shock load, which is a BB load at 1450 feet per second. These shells only have 90 pellets in them to begin with. So while we did put 63% of the shells inside the 30-inch circle, that still only gives us on average shot 57 shells, 57 pellets inside the 30-inch circle. Versus over here, the Remington nitro steel, which is a number 2 steel at 1275, you see we got a 91% average inside the 30-inch circle, and on average, per average shot, we got 142 pellets inside of the 30-inch circle. You can see over here on the BB load at 1450 feet per second, this pattern's really starting to open up already. So you're starting to get a lot of holes. Now granted, I shot just a touch high, so that kind of accounts for this bottom area. But nonetheless, you are starting to see some holes on the outer fringe of the pattern. Over here with a heavier payload at a slower speed, just like Jim Muller says, this pattern really stays together nice. We've got 142 pellets on average shot inside of the 30-inch circle, and the majority of those inside of the 20-inch circle, and there's just no way that a goose is escaping this. Similarly, over here we have the Winchester dry lock number 2 steel on the right versus the Remington Sportsman high speed BB load steel BB on the left. And again, we've got a very similar comparison to the Federal and the Remington. Over here on the Winchester side, well, you notice again, I did shoot just a couple inches high, which explains why there's less shot here on the bottom. But nonetheless, per average shot, we've got 125 pellets inside of the 30-inch circle, and the majority of those in the 20-inch circle, which gave us a 90% average, 90+% average. In fact, honestly, I think this is almost a little bit too much shot. The core is just a little hot for my taste. You're going to be picking a lot of pellets out of the meat on this goose. But if you compare the nice even distribution over here at 1300 with number 2s at 1300 feet per second, you get this nice even distribution, real nice core. Over here on the BBs at 1550, you can see this pattern's really blown open. Big gaps Big gaps all over the place. 1,500 feet per second is just way too fast. And a BB load has far too few pellets. I actually cut one of these open and there was 80 pellets inside of one of these shells. So again, just like Jim Muller tells us, by keeping a payload heavy and the speed slow, 1,300 feet per second or slower on steel, you get a nice even pattern distribution. Even over here with these BB loads, loaded way too light, going way too fast, that decoy choke still does a nice job of keeping that pattern together as best as you can keep it together. But both of these examples, the last example and this, the last comparison and this comparison, both of these examples clearly demonstrate exactly what Jim says. If we keep our payload heavy and keep our speed slow, we get much better distribution in our patterns. And last but not least, the ammo that I'll be shooting in the 2025 goose season. This is the Remington High Speed #2 steel at 1,300 feet per second. These are 3-inch loads sporting 172 pellets per shell. And in my decoy choke, you can see that this is just throwing an amazing pattern. This is excellent distribution. Even on the outer fringe here, we got a real nice distribution. We got a perfect core. I'm averaging 121 pellets per shot inside of 30 inches. This is just an incredible pattern. This is clearly what I'll be hunting with in 2025. Remington High Speed #2s at 1,300 feet per second through my Muller decoy choke.
So velocity is definitely not your friend. You're not shooting a single projectile. You're shooting a bunch of BBs. A lot of times the BBs are not perfectly uniform. A lot of times, the BBs can get deformed. And if they don't deform, you're getting tremendous pressures going through the choke. So, like Newton's third law of physics, the faster it starts out, the faster it slows down, and the faster it spreads out. So if you start to shoot shotgun patterns, regardless of pellet material, obviously different pellet materials are affected more than others, but they're all affected. The moment you exceed 1,250 feet per second, things really start to vary greatly. Now, there's a lot of loads out there that are 1,300 and they work good. There's a lot of loads out there that are 1,350, they work pretty good. But if they were 1,160 or even 1,200, they would work a lot better. And, not only pattern-wise and efficiency, but also distance. If you shoot a load that's 1,500 feet per second at 60 yards, and you take that same exact choke and ammo combo and scale it down to 1,145, at 1,145 feet per second at that same distance, your pattern is so much denser, so much tighter, and so much more consistent and uniform. It's mind-blowing. So I always teach people, if you have a really far target, or if you're shooting really far targets, the best thing to do is make sure you're starting out with a slower ammo, not faster. And it's also important to shoot the same velocity all the time, so everything is always the same. And my rule of thumb is always stay below 1,300.
Well, that's why I selected the ammos that I've selected to try for this year's goose season. I took advice that I've heard from you on other podcasts, and I mean, right, what I'm seeing right now, I mean, the top two recommendations that you gave are the two boxes I plan to have in my bag this fall.
Yep.
That Remington Nitro Steel at 1275 is just, I mean, we're seeing beautiful patterns with that.
Yep.
The
So
Winchester Drylock at 1300 is pretty darn close.
Yep.
And then in the 3-inch, I can't find anything under 1300. But
no, you
Remington,
won't.
that high-speed Remington at 1300, that did pretty fair also.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. All good loads. You know, so it's just a matter of playing around and testing the lower velocity with the higher payload. You know, all these people testing all this light payload ammo and saying a lot of things like, oh, the lighter payload gave me better percentages than the heavier payload. And then you find out that, you know, the distance they're patterning at or the way that they're doing the pellet percentages just doesn't calculate right. But if you shoot birds, you're going to see a huge difference. You know, I always teach people pellets are what break the target or kill the birds, not air. So if you could have more pellets in the same exact shell, why not have it?
Is there any advantage to 2 3/4 over the 3-inch shell since you have the smaller payload?
So hull length or shell length doesn't mean anything. What matters is the payload and what's in it. So if you have a 2 3/4 inch shell that's 1.25 ounces, and you have a 3.5-inch 10-gauge shell that's 1.25 ounces, it's going to be the same thing provided it's the same velocity. You know, not to get into the bore diameters and choke, but as far as physics, 1.25 ounces is 1.25 ounces. It doesn't matter what hull length it's coming out of. So
right,
what a lot of ammo companies do is, let's say it's like a Remington Nitro Steel. They put 1.25 ounces in a 2 3/4 inch hull, which is the most you could fit in there in steel, and they push that only 1275. It's going to pattern phenomenal because of the components, the amount of pellets, and the velocity. If you take that same thing, a lot of companies, they'll put in 3-inch or 3.5-inch. They leave it at 1.25 ounces. So all they do is they put spacers in and they put more powder in, give them more velocity, and they start, you know, marketing hyper velocity kills and speed killed slogans. The only thing speed kills is your shoulder, your neck, your wallet, and your pattern. It doesn't kill birds.
Fellas, I hope you guys found this information useful. I hope you enjoyed Jim Muller's teaching as much as I enjoyed it. But guys, thanks for watching another episode of Team Jesus Outdoors. Hey guys, do me a favor and go over and check out our other channel, TJO Men's Ministries. Over there we talk about the Bible and we talk about faith in Christ. Fellas, we've recently uploaded some fresh content on that channel, and I think there's something over there for everyone. So whether you're a brand new believer, or you've been following Christ for years, or you're just trying to make sense of faith, you're trying to decide how faith fits into your life, or if faith fits into your life, no matter where you're at in your faith journey, I think that there's something you'll find over at TJO Men's Ministries that you'll enjoy. I'll leave a link here at the end of the video. God bless, tight lines. We'll see you in the woods or on the water.